So the first thing we're going to do is grab the text element, drag that out onto the stage, and we're going to give it the name my to-do list. Do to-do list. Once we've done that, we're going to change the styling. So we're going to remove the default styling that Bubble has already given us by clicking Remove Style. Currently body copy, which is a predefined style, is what's selected. We're going to hit Remove Style, and that will give us a few options that we can work with. We want to center the text, and then we'll go with a font size of about 36. And we might as well bold it while we're here. And just like that, you've styled your text option. So what we're going to do now is click on the input item element from the menu on the left. We're going to name it to do, TO-DO. Once you've done that, you're going to return to the menu on the left. What you're going to find is the date and time picker. Where is it? I just saw it. The date and time picker from the input forms side menu option. And you're just going to drag that onto the stage. Now, this doesn't have to be named at this moment. This is going to be a date and time picker, which will provide you with a due date. Okay, so what we want to do now is grab the button element, drag it onto the stage. We're going to give it a name of, we're going to get rid of edit me, and we're going to replace that with the word create. Move this over so we can see our button. We now click on the Start Edit Workflow button. So now that we're on the Workflow tab, we're going to click the When Button Created is Clicked option. That brings up another option here. We're going to click here to add an action. We're going to select the data with the things in parentheses. We're going to select create a new thing. Now, once we've done that, inside of the create a new thing box, we're going to open the drop down up now. We don't have any data types in here now. That's what this box is showing, data types. We don't have any. We haven't created any. We're going to create our first one. So we're going to select the create a new type option. And what we're going to name it is to do. TODO. Hit enter. Now we have a data type of to do. Now, once that's done, you notice this title here changed from create a new thing to create a new to do, because we have given our thing, our new thing, a name of to do. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to add another field. So you want to click on the set another field option. We're going to click on the click option, and we don't have any fields in our database yet, but we're going to add one now. We're going to call this field title, and we're going to give it the field type of text. And then we're going to hit the create button. So now we have a data type of to do. It has a field in it called title. Now we're going to set the value of that field. And the value of that field is going to be a result of our users selecting the to do option that we created earlier from the design tab. And we're going to select the value. What this essentially means is that when someone inputs uh, a title into the application, it's going to be stored using the input to do. It's going to be stored in the title field inside of the to do data type in the database. Now that that's done, we basically want to select another new field, and we're going to call this new field the due date. So we're going to click on the click option again. We're going to create a new field. We're going to name this one due date, and we're going to give it a field type of date. And we're going to hit the create button. And if you haven't guessed already, the way we're going to set the value for the due date is by choosing the date time picker, which we selected earlier. From the design tab, we're going to let the value that is selected determine what the due date that was selected actually is um, in the field type. And we're going to actually add one more field. Okay, the purpose of this field, what we're going to name it, is finished. And its purpose is going to be to tell the application whether or not an activity or to-do list was actually an item on the to-do list was actually finished. And the field type for that will be either yes or no. And what we're going to do here, unlike these two options where we set the values based on what the user inputs on the front end of the application, what we're going to do here is there is no way, there's no field. There's no field that says yes or no at the moment. So what we're going to do is give this a default value of no. And then later on in this video, we're going to show you how the user will have the option in the interface of changing this value to yes when a to-do list item has actually been completed. Now that we've taken care of that, we're going to add one final action here while we're on the workflow tab. We're going to click here to add an action option. We're going to select element actions and then reset inputs. And essentially what that does is once a user on the front end of the application has entered information and clicked on the create button, after these actions have been executed, step one will move on to the application will then move on to step two, and step two basically will wipe all the information out of the form. So any title that you put in and any date that you put in will reset to empty values so that the next to do item can be added to the list. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to return to the design tab and do some more work on the front end of the application. Our next step is to create the area that is actually going to show the items that are on the to-do list. Now we're going to grab the repeating group element and we're going to drag that out onto the stage. We're going to take up most of the screen. As you can see here, indicated in red, the repeatable group bubble actually shows you with most of its elements what your width and height measurements are. In this case, this particular repeating group's height is 936 pixels and about 395 pixels tall. So for this exercise, why don't we set the number of rows to 10, and we'll set the type of content to do. And if you remember earlier, we created a database thing known as to do. That is what you see here. As far as the data source field goes, Bubble uses this to tell the repeating group where to obtain the information. In this case, we're going to click on the click option and we're going to perform a search. What we're going to search is the data type of to do. Okay, this tells Bubble, okay, we want you to search in the to do data type to decide which information is actually going to be displayed in this repeating group. We're also going to add a constraint to it, meaning that uh, this will serve as a type of filter to control the information that actually gets displayed that exists in the to do type in the database. We're basically going to click the click option and we're going to click the finish field type, click the click option again, the equal symbol, and then we're going to select no. And if you remember from earlier in the video, this no happens to be the default option of every item that is added into the database. Every item that's on the to-do list that a user creates inserts into the database with the option or the value of no for the field type of finished. Okay, and since we're here, we're also going to set up some sorting. Okay, what we're going to sort by, in this case, is the to-do date, which was another field type that we created earlier in this video. And now that we've gotten that done, we can close this and X out of that. What we want to do now is help set the table or configure the table so that it knows what actual data to show. I am aware that we just gave instructions to the repeating group on where to obtain the data, but now we're going to control what data actually is shown. So to do that, we're going to grab the text element from the menu and we're going to basically drag onto the stage inside of the repeating group. And you know that I'm inside of the repeating group because the cell border turns red. That's how you know you're adding an element inside of the repeating group. Once I drop that text element inside of the repeating group, you can see that all of the available cells in the repeating group basically are replicating this same element that I just added. This essentially is what Bubble's trying to tell you here is that this is what's going to show in every row. If there's data available, this is what we're going to show. Um, so now that that's done, what we want to do is use the insert dynamic data option. Okay, we want to select the current cells to do. We want to select the title. Okay, and now that we've done that, we're going to basically repeat these steps. This time, we're going to configure an option so that the date, the due date, is actually what is shown. And just to point out very quickly, if you notice, I dropped this text element on the stage, but it did not populate in the other cells as it did here. Sometimes it's about positioning with Bubble. Sometimes you have to make the text item or the element a little larger or a little smaller to get it to show up the way that you want it to. And I am not having any. All right, there we go. And now that that's done, we're going to drag the button element onto the stage. And the purpose of this button element is going to be to tell Bubble. We're going to name it done. And this will be the way that we determine, this will be the way that we allow the users of the application to tell Bubble or tell our to-do list application whether an item is actually done or not. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to go back to the workflow. Actually, we need to make sure that we have the done button selected. And one way you can guarantee that you do this right is double click on the button that you want to add the action to, or that you want to apply the workflow action to, and just use it, the inspecting elements uh, option. Click that, it takes you to the same place as you would have gone had you just clicked the workflow button here on the left. What we want to do now is give Bubble the information that it needs so that when the user clicks the done button, the application will know what it's supposed to do. You may remember this. We move a little bit faster now since we've been through this. We click here to add an action option. We are going to be making a change to the database, so we select data with things in parentheses. Now this time we're going to be making a change to a thing, because now we're telling data, the Bubble, or our application rather, that when that done button is clicked, the actual value should change from the default of no to yes. So we're making a change. We're not creating something new. We're making a change to something that exists already. So we select that option. Now inside of the make a change to a thing button, we want to element, we want to click the click option. We want to select the current sales to do, and we want to then click on change another field. We're going to obviously select finish because that's the field we want to change. And when that done button is clicked, we want to change the value to yes. We can X out of that. I like to go back to the design tab before previewing. And technically, we're done. Now it's time to test. And to test, we simply click on the preview button in the upper right hand corner. That will launch a new tab where you are allowed to preview and test your application. So as you can see, our form, our title is here, our form with the title field that we created, name to do, our due date with the date and time picker has been created, and the create button has been created. Now we're going to walk through this application as if we were a user and see if it works. So the first thing I'm going to add to my to-do list is create this tutorial, and then I'm going to click the date picker drop down, and as you can see here, um, I have the option of choosing a day. I can move the sort through months. I can simply hit the today option and today's date will go in it, and I'm going to go with tomorrow's date just for the sake of this video. And if I hit this create button, I should have a new item added to my to-do list. And there you go. Now it's over here versus being directly under the form that I created it in, which is fine. That's something that we can adjust and move around from the design stage. But what you really want to do when you're is test the functionality. At least that's what I like to do. I like to make sure the application is actually functioning the way that I designed it to function. Moving things around and designing things is actually a different part of software development, but um, to be functionality should be taken care of first. That's the way I develop, and design is something that you can always take care of after you've gotten your functionality um, taken care of. Now I'm going to add, for the sake of this video, I'm going to add another item to my to-do list, and this time I'll say have dinner, and that we want to have happen today, probably right after I finish this tutorial. And I'm going to click the create button again, and sure enough, I now have two items on my to-do list. And just for the sake of this video, I'm going to add one which I will then say that I've completed. And let's say have lunch, which I've done already. And that also has happened today. Create, and now we have created 3 different items on our to-do list and given them all dates and times. I've had lunch already, so I'm going to click the done button. And when I do that, the status of this option, should change from finish to no to finished yes. If you remember earlier in the video, we set a default option so that every item that's shown in this table has a finished value of no, unless that done button is clicked. If that done button is clicked, the value changes for finish changes to yes. And since we don't show items in this repeating group that have a finished value of yes, changing the value by clicking this done button should remove it. So let's test it. And it worked. I changed the value to done. I clicked the done button, which changed the value of finished to yes, which removed it from this database because it does not fit the rules that we put in for items that should be shown in this to-do list. We're going to grab the repeating group element, reduce the width, right click on it, select center horizontally. This will center the repeating group on the page. We're then going to manually do something similar for the form by clicking and selecting all of the fields and the button and then centering those. And now we'll repeat what we did for the repeating group for the title. Right click, hit center horizontally, and now your form's nice and neat. Now that we've got that cleaned up a bit, let's preview the application. You simply come up to the upper right hand corner, hit the preview button. Our previously launched tab now relaunches, but now instead of having the contents of the to-do list pushed off to the left, they're centered. That's all based on the work we just did. And that is pretty much it. You have a working, functional, basic to-do list. Very basic, but it works.